Is it true that the Trails games have the most detailed world building in JRPGs in general? Yes, it's impressive. It's really impressive how the world building in the Trail series has been developed, man. There's a lot of detail, a lot of attention, a lot of things that no one... I mean, most people don't care. Most gamers, most fans who play these games don't even care about that little... the vegetation, for example, right? Or the geography of certain areas. Or what kind of lake is this, or what kind of fish are in there, you know, and they developed all of that, you know. They made a huge lore based on that, so yeah. Man, in terms of world building, it's impressive, but I think it helps a lot that this is a series that's huge and every single game takes place in the same place, right? So we've seen games with impressive world building before. In my opinion, Final Fantasy IX has great world building, but there's only one game in that world, okay? That's it, right? So now, and now you look at the Trail series, and from Trails in the Sky all the way to Trails into Daybreak, or is it Through Daybreak? A freaking name, man. Trails Through Daybreak, yeah, which is coming out in a few months. No release date confirmed yet, as of the making of this video. So, you know, all of those games, man, you got more than 10 games that take place in the same universe, in the same continent of Erebonia, right? So, man, yeah, the world building is freaking impressive, and if you start paying attention, if you start reading, most of the Trails physical games come with a manual. If you read through the manual, my special edition of Trails of Cold Steel 3 and 4 has this big chunk manual, you know, and you read through it and you're like, man, there's also a big map. It's just impressive. It's impressive. But still, I think Suikoden has the best world building in JRPG history. That's it. Suikoden and Trails will be my second pick, definitely. Would you say that the MegaTen games have good world building? Interesting question. There are some JRPGs out there that are like awesome and that I'm a big fan of, but when it comes to world building, I'll admit that Mega Tensei, Persona included, are not exactly the first games that come into mind, or I can think of 20, 30, maybe 50 JRPGs that have great world building, just not MegaTen. Not because they don't have, but because Persona only focuses on one city. One small city in Japan. Japan is an island, man. Really small island. So they're focusing on a really small part of their world. So I fucking love Persona, guys, but I don't think they have interesting world building because the games are not about world building or the lore, right? Mega Tensei, on the other hand, most of the games take place in Tokyo, but most of them also only specialize or focus in one single city, in one single town, or in one single part of this or that place. So, no. I'm gonna say no, but not with a negative connotation, because I don't think world building is a part of these games. But what I can say is that the small world building they have is pretty interesting, because especially in the Persona series, you do get to know a lot about the city, about the people living there, about modern times, about stuff that's going on in there, about culture, about social and political issues in there. And the Mega Tensei games are a little bit away from that. They focus more on the gameplay mechanics and on the not exactly the social political situation, more like the philosophical political situation and the religious situation in the world the characters are living in. So it's more about that. And I think it's very interesting. I think whatever really small world building the games have, it's pretty interesting so far. But no, compared to most JRPGs out there, they do not have good world building, but because it's just not the point. The developers didn't make these games and thought about world building. No, they don't care about that. But maybe one of these days we'll get an open world Shin Megami Tensei game. Maybe Shin Megami Tensei 6 is gonna be like that. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. Compare the world building in SMT with Trails or Suikoden or even some Final Fantasy games, and you're gonna be like, no, man, it's just another level. Do you think every Tales game has good world building? Or name which Tales series you think excels in the world building department? I do believe that Tales games have world building, which is why most of them are kind of longer than your average JRPG. There's a lot of detail in them, and what I like about the Tales games is that they all seem to focus on elemental parts. Like you go to this place and there's a lot of fire elemental reference in there, and fire elemental attributes and landscapes and stuff like that. And then there's the woods, the jungles. There's a lot of diversity in terms of geography in the Tales games, and that's what makes them so appealing, in my opinion. One of the many reasons why they're so appealing. I love that. So I do believe that Tales games have great world building. Maybe not some of the best, like Suikoden or Trails, which is what we were discussing before. But I really do believe that the Tales games have great world building. And there's been games with sequels. Tales of Exilia, for example, there's 2 games. So you get 2 games and you get to experience 2 completely different worlds. Sorry for the spoiler, but I need to use it. 2 completely different worlds, and they're very different. Once you play both games, Exilia 1 and 2, you're like, oh my god, this is great world building. Right? And then there's Tales of Symphonia 1 and 2, same, but I always felt like Symphonia 2 takes place, well, it takes place in the exact same world, so there wasn't a lot of room for world building in there, and I don't think it's the focus of it, but it's still there. And I think Tales of Fantasia is connected to Symphonia. I think Symphonia is like a prequel to Fantasia, so they kind of take place in the same universe. Berseria and Cesteria are another big one, but they're also like hundreds of years apart. Still, the world building in Tales of Berseria was awesome. I really liked it. Again, it's not the highlight of the game. I think that's a game that shines in terms of storytelling and characters, not exactly in world building. But if you pay attention to the landscape, to your surroundings, to the lore, if you talk to NPCs, if you walk around towns and areas, you can see this impressive diversity in world building. Just like Planet Earth. I like that. What are some of the best Tales games in terms of world building? Well, ironically, Berseria. But I think the best one is pretty much Tales of Exilia. I think it had the best world building because there's 2 games. I can't just say, oh, Exilia 1 or Exilia 2. I can't decide. It's both. It's the same world, the same universe, the same setting. So, yeah, I really believe Exilia takes the cake, man. Takes the crown. I think the world building is impressive because there's a lot of medieval looking stuff, a lot of beautiful natural landscapes in there, but also a lot of modern kind of steampunk-ish world design. So all that combined was just great. So yeah, I think the Tales games have great world building. But like I said before, nothing beats Suikoden. Suikoden is just that type of universe that every game takes place in the same universe, but also every game takes place in like a different part of the same world, and even different continents and shit. And there's a lot of reference, again, talking to NPCs or even some of the story, paying attention to the lore of Suikoden, of every Suikoden title. I mean, you get to experience these like, oh, they're talking about this faraway land, and then it turns out there's a game that took place in that land, and then there's also a chronology based on it, like the first 3 Suikoden games, like sequels to each other, and then Suikoden 4 is like the prequel to them all, and then Suikoden 5 takes place after that, but it's like also a prequel to the first 3 games. It's incredible, it's incredible world building, and how it was handled was awesome. The Ys series did the same thing, okay? Every Ys game, even Origins, it's the same. They all take place in the same universe. It's huge planet, this huge world, and every game takes place in a different part of the world. And yes, the Ys series is another example of amazing world building. Every single one of them, not just the modern ones. Go back and play the older ones. Ys 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Play from 1 through 6, and you still get a decent amount of world building. Sure, the world building is more impressive starting from 7 and onward. Celceta, the remake of 4, also the same, but there was that world building lore sensation, and feeling in the first games, and you can see that even though they are really small games, you can feel that, like, oh my god, this game takes place in this part of the world, and this small place, is like huge at the same time, and you get to know so much about that little part of the world where Adel is playing, is fighting, is adventuring on, right? But then again, Suikoden is just the best. It's just the best because you play any of the games, and I think one of the reasons why the Suikoden world building is impressive, one of the many reasons why, is also because of the characters, because you go and recruit different characters from different places, from different cultures, and thanks to that specific character, you learn a little bit more about a different part of the world from that particular game. And if you play one Suikoden game, it's not going to impress you that much. You need to play them all. You need to play most of them to really feel like, oh my god, this is another level of world building. Okay, so that's why I think it's the best. You learn so much, and some things resemble real life. Some others are fantasy and science fiction even. But it's just handled so well, so perfectly, that I can't wait for a Eiyuden Chronicle to come out just to see if it's the same, if it has the same impressive level of world building. Suikoden the best. Yeah, but some of the Tales games are great too. I couldn't resist. Did you think, did the Suikoden remaster get cancelled? No, it just got delayed last year. I think Konami's waiting for an opportunity to strike. I think Eiyuden Chronicle is going to come out first, and then Konami's gonna decide their release date, probably based on that. Gonna be like, oh, the game wasn't successful? I'll just release it right now to crush it, to sink it. Oh, the game was very successful? Maybe I should wait and take advantage of that success, because if Eiyuden Chronicle succeeds, Suikoden is gonna start trending, and what's Konami gonna do? Hey! Here's Suikoden 1 and 2! Here you go! Oh yeah, we're gonna sell a lot! I think that's what Konami is planning on doing. So no, it didn't get cancelled. What about... I've been playing through Trails from Zero, and I plan on playing through the entire series this year, and so far the world building is pretty, in my opinion. Yeah, pretty good. It's awesome, yeah, so go back to Sky first. Do yourself a favor and start with Trails in the Sky. Sure, it's a bit slow, and the first episode is not that special without the second episode, but if you stick to it and play through the second chapter, you're gonna love it. When you compare Suikoden to Trails, what aspect of Suikoden does better and what aspect Trails does better? I think Suikoden is better than Trails in everything. I can't think of a single... Well, okay, I'll give you something that Trails does better. It has more modern graphics, but that's kind of unfair because Suikoden stopped being developed over 10 years ago. So it's kind of unfair. I'm thinking music. I love the Trails music, and I love rock and metal, but I think Suikoden has this something about the music that's just better and more unique to it. So, storytelling, characters, gameplay mechanics. Sorry, man. I think Suikoden is better in everything than Trails, but that's just the fanboy in me answering that question. Trails has Risha and Emma. Suikoden has Jean. You can't beat that. Jean, you can't fucking beat that. And a plethora of sexy-ass waifus in every entry. Suikoden's better than Trails in everything.